Director, dear participants, delegates, members of the IAEE, good morning. Welcome all to the 39th IAEE International Conference. I would like to start with a thank you to the NHH and the Norwegian affiliate for hosting the 39th IAEE International Conference. In particular, I would like to acknowledge those that have worked very hard to ensure the success of this conference, the largest IAEE conference on record. Einar Hope, our General Conference Chair, Gunnar Eskeland, our Program Committee Chair, Knut Einar Rosendahl, our Concurrent Session Chair, David Williams, IAEE Executive Director, Olga Pushkash, the Administrative Committee Chair, Linda Root, the Local Organizing Committee Chair, Oliver Bergland, the Poster Session Organizer, and Lisa Esman, a Poster Session Organizer. Now, at IAEE, we are having exciting times. With a long-term perspective of regional engagement, we are in a time of strategic moving into India, Africa, Central Asia, and Middle East. In particular, addressing the needs of non-OECD countries. Within this outreach, we're starting a new conference series at the end of August this year in Baku, the first Eurasian conference. We start building from scratch local regional affiliates. We're bringing an international perspective with increased annual efforts to local issues, local energy issues. At IAEE, we also have a newly elected editor-in-chief for our journal EEP, Economics of Energy and Environmental Policy, Christian van Huishausen. He is at this conference here today as well. And now, I would like to spend a few minutes on the presidential address. Starting with the outlook, various sources have summarized four here: the BP Energy Outlook, MIT, EIA, and IEA. Basically, they're saying the same thing. Reference scenario for all three except the IEA Outlook, which is the bridge scenario, implying a peak in global emissions by 2020, where there is energy efficiency and more investment into renewables. But even this scenario has oil as a major fuel, and the switch, gas and coal, occurs a couple of years earlier. Renewables come in earlier, but that's the next 20, 30 years, the outlook, the forecast coming up. So I want to focus on oil and gas in this presidential address today, with a global perspective. Now, if you look at this global outlook, we are undergoing exciting times. Particularly, have a look at the red mark. North America turns from a net energy importer to a net energy exporter this year within the primary energy net balances. And here you've got the latest outlook of the Energy Information Administration, which clearly indicates this case. U.S. becoming a net exporter primarily due to the shale discoveries and technology, making it feasible and economic to extract those resources. And in LNG, U.S. becomes a major exporter. The lower 48 states shale reserves are being extracted, similar to the tight oil. These are the latest outlook figures from the EIA. Of course, this oversupply has been influencing the markets. Prices have been coming down. But if you look at the Henry Hub prices, gas in the US is quite cheaper than gas, than the Japanese LNG, than gas in Europe, which makes US LNG competitive. Prices have recovered recently a little bit, both oil and gas. This is the figure for gas. And still gas prices are to a large extent coupled to long-term contracts and oil prices. But this changes with increasing LNG. US exports of LNG started earlier this year. First exports in February from the lower 48 states, shale exports. This was bound for Brazil. And then the first shale exports to Europe, that tanker arrived in Portugal. And if you look at the proposed LNG export terminals, you see there are all these applications and projects and pre-filing implying an increase in LNG, and this is also destined towards Europe. And as Portugal has received the first LNG shipment, actually the Iberian Peninsula accounts for all 45% currently of all LNG imports into Europe. But pipeline links to the rest of Europe are underdeveloped. Opening up here this area, we have the possibility of increased supply from North Africa. Algeria is the world's 7th largest gas producer, but pipelines to Spain and Italy are underutilized. There is political concern here, similar to the Mediterranean. Mediterranean, in a European Commission joint statement, is recommended as a new corridor, as a Mediterranean gas hub. There are major discoveries, but again, regional conflicts prove to be a challenge. In this region, we have the Caspian as a strategically important region for reserves as well. All these Caspian countries are important. Also, in transit to Europe, Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey emerge as strategically important countries. If you look up at these available resources, we have the Trans-Anatolia pipeline project, whose construction has started, bringing gas from the Caspian to Europe in continuation with the Trans-Adriatic pipeline. We had the South Stream pipeline, which has been cancelled. Now we have the Turkish pipeline project. There has been tension between Turkey and Russia, but the latest warm-up with Putin and Erdogan implies that this project may come along as well. Iran, after the disembargo, proves to be, it has got the resources, and with investment, it can be coupled to bring Iranian gas to Europe as well. Iraq has cheap resources as well, and so the Mediterranean. So with all this, actually, there's a possibility of supply diversification, and particularly at the Greek-Turkish border, because that appears to be the bundling point of all different resources, to initiate a gas hub. Iraq is very important. It has the world's second largest oil resources after Saudi Arabia, and particularly northern Iraq, world's 8th largest oil and gas reserves. We've seen a production freeze agreement by Russia and Saudi Arabia in January, but this had not much impact on prices in spite of the initial hike. In fact, Russia and Saudi Arabia are at their top level of production, and you see the incremental increase is not from Russia and Saudi Arabia, but more from Iraq, US, and Canada, North America, as you notice. Now, crude oil prices, although they have recovered a bit recently, now this has led the US shale production to recap again. In the past 4 weeks, 9 idled oil rigs have been put back to work. So, and this is the rigonomics. Now, supply increases again, and that's why I think the price hike will not sustain and will revert back to an area of low prices. So I want to finish with a question, what's coming up? Here you see the oil and gas trade movements today, as of today. And this conference will help you to answer the question, what's coming up next? Because we're undergoing dynamic times, and these figures will change in near future. Thank you very much.